Welcome to Let's Talk, a free space where we explore common family challenges through personal experiences and tools shared by our guests. Our topic today is raising boys, a topic of particular interest to me as a mom of two boys. Our guests today are Tami Chin-Mitchell. Yeah. She's a mom of 3 boys, 1 daughter, and you're also a stepmom to a teenage son.
That's right.
And we also have Mr. Khaleel Azan. And you've been a mentor and sporting coach to several boys, numerous boys of all ages throughout the years, correct?
That's great.
Yeah. Thanks for being here today and talking with us.
Thanks for having us.
So Tami, your youngest child is a girl, right?
Yes.
What would you say is the most glaring difference between raising your boys and your daughter?
You know, I had a feeling that when I had a daughter, I would know what to do. It turns out I don't know. But you know, just I think the most glaring difference is that I think Wayne and I challenge why we do what we do just because she's a girl more, you know? And so there's always this question of, you know, like, I think about how many times we say to the boys, you know, gentle, be careful. And I'm like, would we be saying this, you know, if she was a boy? Or, you know, what type of special treatment comes from not just being the only girl of the family, but the baby of the family. So it's kind of mixed up into that. But I think that's been like I think it's created the most, like we question things more and we wonder, why do we do this? And you know, is it okay? Is it fair? Should we be doing it like that? Should we be doing things so differently? Right. And so it's something that we always go back and forth on, and we have lots of different answers that we come up with, you know, because it's a whole new world for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you find there are challenges you experienced with raising your boys?
Yeah. I mean, the biggest one has always just been allowing them to experience all their emotions. I think that's something that I feel tends to be a very new school way of thinking. And it's something that, you know, I'm challenged with sometimes too. Like I find myself sometimes even, you know, before I say something else, I have the thought of, why are you crying? For example, as opposed to, I would never probably say that to a little girl or to my daughter. And so I have really, you know, really tried to challenge myself to allow them to experience all of their emotions and to really, you know, express themselves how they feel, you know, and not just because you're a boy, you shouldn't cry or you shouldn't do this or toughen up or, you know, it's an interesting thing raising boys.
It really is. It really is. Khaleel, I have to ask you, what are some of the challenges you experience with the boys that you've mentored and coached throughout the years?
Well, you know, this is very interesting because having listened to Tami, I'm not getting them at that stage. I'm getting them at the age of 11 or 12 years old, where she has had to deal with a lot of issues before. So I'm getting a mixed group where some parents have dealt with these issues much better than others. And sometimes I get a very rounded child who has been exposed, who is comfortable with themselves. But often I get a child who is uncomfortable with themselves. And listening to you, I can understand now where this is coming from. I get children coming to me for different reasons. Some because they like the sport.
That's skeet shooting.
Yeah, clay shooting. But others, they're sent to me because they think I can fix something. When I have looked back, I've been doing this since 2010. And I probably have been exposed to 300 or 400 kids.
Wow.
It's interesting what you're saying about girls and boys. Because when they get to me, a sport is a sport. I have to treat them equally. I treat the girls the same way. Maybe I'm a little more gentler, but I have to make them show strength. And one of the things I think is that looking back, I think if parents were to practice what I have to do at 12 years old, from they were growing up, which is they need a strong spiritual background, they need a strong physical background, but they also have to have a strong mental background, and it has to be balanced. A lot of times when they get to me, they're looking for a comfortable space where they can be allowed to fail without criticism.
Yeah.
Because I teach not only by their success, I teach them by their failures, how to correct. Because in clay shooting, you're going to miss targets. They must feel that their success is not more important than the failure, because they're going to learn from the failure to become successful. It's trying to get from the beginning a balance, because when you learn something consciously. Then it becomes a skill. And you do it subconsciously. Everything in the house, every single thing.
Yeah.
But parents need now to understand there's a development of the self-image that goes with those two. And it is how you speak to them. You can destroy that self-image or you can build it.
Yeah.
By the questions you ask and by the answers you give.
Yeah. But so much of that is built into how we feel about ourselves too. And that's what's so hard about parenting, because I feel like so many of us as well are struggling with that, with our own self-image, with our own confidence.
Absolutely.
And, you know, I feel like sometimes with our children, we're constantly trying to, in some ways, make it easier for them. But how it actually turns out is that it can feel to our children that we're trying to fix them and change them and mold them. And I don't feel like we're giving enough room for them to just also, you know, kind of show us what they're about and learn from them as well. They need our guidance, absolutely. But I'm most shocked at how much we are learning about ourselves. And it's just such a difficult thing to be tasked with parenting another person.
Right.
You know, it's not something that should be taken lightly, but at the same time, it needs and requires so much grace, because my God, we get it wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Yeah. We are also the product of how we were parented, right? Do you find that you parent in the same way you were parented, or are you doing things differently?
Both.
Yeah.
Both. I hear my mother and father come out of my mouth all the time. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Which is also a good thing. I love the way my parents parented me. I call them all the time and I'm like, how did you give us so much room? And how did you, I remember my mother allowing us to play with all of our nice things, or she never had any attachment to anything that as being so important that we couldn't play with it, touch it, whatever it was. And it's so funny because I'm so much more I don't know what the word is. I just feel so much more tense sometimes in motherhood. And she seems so relaxed in motherhood, which is, you know, something I strive for. She just always had this feeling that she knew what she was doing. And now talking to her, she's like, I didn't know what I was doing. Sometimes I wish I could see more of my parents actually come forward. And I think that our generation, we have so much information coming at us all the time. What's right, what's not right, what's damaging, what's, you know, hurting our children, what's this, what's that we don't really tune into ourselves intuitively anymore to be like, well, what's right for my family? What's right for us? You know, not just what my parents did or what we've read, but what is okay for us as a family? You know, I think that's the hardest voice to hear, is our own parenting voice.
Absolutely.
I think it's very, very difficult with the input of technology and the tablets and the internet and what they're exposed to, and when is the right time to expose them. So when I look back at my own life, I didn't have that. And I was outdoor all the time, playing sports, find things to occupy my time, developing work ethics. You know, I came from parents that had a business, and we had to, at 10 years old, I could operate the store for a day by myself. So I think, as Tami says, you reflect what your own upbringing in what you do. And the success of my interaction is that I got a lot of love at home. I developed trust in my parents. I find that a lot of the kids that come to me, where's the connection? They need to be connected to something. And the first thing I try to do is develop that trust, because if I don't have it, I can't get any further. When you talk about should the boys cry or not cry, all of them cry in my class because they're feeling. At some point, they're going to feel it because if they're good, I'm going to push them. And at some point, there's some failure that they have to learn from. If they are not that good technically, I have to use a failure at the beginning to build success. They cry. They cry when they're successful, and they cry when they fail. So it's a release of emotions. And I don't let it bother me. I just say, it's okay, cry. I've seen it. I've seen it 100 times before. So if you feel like crying, cry.
And that brings me to the types of stereotypes, right? Boys will be boys. Boys don't cry. I'm sure we've all grown up hearing those things over and over. Do you think these are dangerous stereotypes to perpetuate with our children?
I mean, you know, it's so tough that, you know, just based on if you're a boy or a girl, you're allowed to experience a certain set of emotions. And it just doesn't seem fair. We're all born with all of these emotions and we're supposed to experience all of them. And, you know, we never had dolls in the house before because we never had a girl. And it's just so interesting that, you know, we want our boys to grow up into nurturing, loving partners and fathers, but they never get to actually experience, like, we always have girls with dolls pretending to be mummies and hushing the babies and, you know, really getting a chance to play out things like empathy. And then if you're a boy, you just don't really get that unless maybe you have a sibling, you know. But I say this because, you know, I watch the boys now join in with Ivy and playing. And, you know, it's so nice to actually see them getting an opportunity to express that part of themselves, which they're so good at. They're so empathetic. They're so loving and caring. And I see it, you know, on their sister, with each other, they fight, you know.
Of course.
There's that. But I think, wow, just like we're robbing boys the opportunity to express hurt, failure, you know, sadness, you know, whatever it is, all these emotions that we don't, you know, class as, you know, masculine and tough, we're really doing a disservice, you know, to them. And it shows in all of the data and the statistics that it's not a good ending, you know, when we don't allow our boys to experience the full gamut of emotions, you know.
Tami, in some households, maybe one parent seeing a scenario like you just described, boys playing with the sisters' dolls, one parent may stop that. What happens when parenting styles differ? How do you approach that?
Well, lucky for me, I mean, I feel like, you know, something that, you know, Wayne and I see eye to eye so much on so many parenting things. And, you know, I feel like we're really lucky to be able to talk to each other and say, you know, hey, what do you think about this? And even with that scenario, that was a discussion that we had to have. We're both pretty open to, you know, really just see, you know, what makes sense and what is just what we grew up with and what is, you know, but differences in parenting styles it's really hard. And it can be detrimental to the household because unity is so important. And having a unified head of our home, as in the parents, it's really important. And so I don't really know that I have the answers for how to operate when you're not on the same page, but
I think you gave a great tool in that, just communicating with your partner.
And actually asking each other, why do we feel this way?
Exactly. Challenging each other and asking the questions, the right questions.
I think that what is happening and what I'm seeing is that the parents can't do everything alone.
That is a fact.
We're dependent on the school system, the teachers, the coaches like myself, the extracurricular activities to fill a gap that has to be missing, because a lot of parents are so busy in this competitive world, and I don't even know how they do it, because they have to go to work early and they have to come home late, and I know that there has to be a gap that is missing.
Yeah, a lot of single parent homes as well.
Oh yeah. I really see a lot of difference in that. It's challenge for single mothers. I watch my own daughter, and I am seeing the time that she has to put in. And if she was working from home, would she have been able to do all that she's doing? I think she's doing a great job. And I think the school system is where sometimes it breaks down, and that's why some schools are so successful and others aren't, because some of them seem to be getting it right and some can't get it right. But I really think that if I was to use sports as a comparison, sports has a lot of life lessons to give. And what makes somebody good in sports, if you apply those things to the actual bringing up of a child from the beginning, you have to have good work ethics, you have to work hard, you have to be disciplined, you have to have good time management, you have to balance the physical with the mental, emotional, everything. It's very difficult. Some parents are going to get it right and some parents are not going to get it right. And where do we get this information to parents to get them to be on the same page is a challenge.
So involving role models and mentors and coaches.
Very important. Very, very important.
How can people adopting this role gain the trust? How important is trust? And
it's the most important thing. The most important thing.
Do you have any tools for us how we can gain the trust of?
It's easy for me because when I go on the line with a child, they become very special to me. I become very attached. But in other sports like football and those things, can the coach become so attached to 11 kids or 20 kids, you know?
Yeah.
I can do it because even if I have a class of 6, when they go on the line, it's them and me.
Yeah.
Right? One-on-one.
I think what we're seeing here too is just, you know, his level of confidence in himself and what that inspires in others.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody can remember that good teacher, that good coach, a good dance teacher who wasn't afraid to show up and in their fullness and wasn't afraid to show us all of who they were in some way, shape or form. And I think that inspires young people to emulate that. I mean, that's how you create emotional intelligence, you know, actually teaching empathy and, you know, just being who you want your kids to be, you know, which is sometimes the hardest thing, but he has my trust.
But I can tell you why trust is so important. I can say certain things to those kids and it doesn't hurt them. And their parents can't say the same thing. It's amazing. And I've seen it over and over. What is interesting is when I was called to do this, I contacted some of my students that I started with in 2010. I said, write me something. And I could see what was important to them in the building. And the first thing they put was trust.
Trust.
Love. Compassion.
Oh, I love it.
being comfortable, not being afraid to fail. Those things were important to them. You know, these are boys 10, now they're 26, they believe they're my age and we're the same age. So we talk about some different things, you know. And what they were saying is that our first relationship was shotgun shooting. And it's the least of the relationship right now.
I love that.
Yeah. Tami, you spoke about being vulnerable in a sense where, you know, you don't always get things right.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a role for that vulnerability where it kind of creates a safe space where your boys can...
Oh, yeah. I tell them all the time. I'm like, sometimes I get things wrong. I don't remember being like, 10 years old and my mom coming to me and saying, I'm so sorry that I said this that way. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it doesn't matter when repair happens to some extent. It just matters that it happens. And so... I'm not saying that any of us should be out here constantly apologizing to our children or telling them that we don't know what we're doing. But I think we know our children well enough to be able to sometimes say, hey, my favorite thing to say to them is I'm just Tami.
Yeah.
I'm Tami trying to be your mom. I'm trying to figure this out.
Wonderful.
And it means that sometimes I'm going to get it wrong. And it's okay for us to have that conversation.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
I'm a
very,
person.
very important.
Yeah. It's so easy to get stuck on the mom.
You don't have to be right.
It's true.
Even apologizing.
So true.
Yeah, I think it's important.
Grown up, I don't think I ever heard a grown up apologize to me before.
No, and some people can get really triggered by that and be like, me apologize to my... No, and it's just, is this a fight for power? Is this a fight to be right? Or is this a fight to, really try to create relationships and try to raise our people and ourselves at the same time, and be better somehow.
I just don't think we have to be right. We need to understand and learn to understand.
Absolutely.
And when they leave your home, they're exposed to all sorts of things. And when they come home, they need to be able to be honest with us.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we can't fix it. We must offer that space that it's the most important thing that you can come back to me and tell me everything.
Yeah. I think it was Michelle Obama who said that she wanted her daughters to know that she didn't just love them, she really liked them. Yeah. And that, hey, come home, you can come home. We like you here.
Yeah.
And that was such a big thing to remember, to remind your children that you don't just love them, that, you really like them. And we'll always love you and like you here.
Absolutely.
Very important.
It is. And we don't always get it right, let me tell you. But I'm going to try.
Tami and Khaleel, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and tools with us on raising boys. We really appreciate it. Let's talk again soon.